Okay, everybody. So in this video, we're going to start setting our alerts for the keyword phrases that we most want to identify for growing our curated newsletter, right? So there are a number of different ways to jump off and dive in and do this. I'm going to show you the exact process that I use for my own content curation communities, and then you can decide on which one of these is the best approach for you. So step one for me is I go to Google. So I'm going to type in mindful business because I'm building a community of entrepreneurs who have a focus on mindfulness or conscious consumerism or enlightened entrepreneurialism, right? So mindful business is a really attractive keyword phrase for my ideal audience. So the first thing you'll see, obviously, is the Google results for this, right? So this is a simple jumping off point for doing your curation, which we're going to cover step by step in the next video. But in this one, I'm just going to show you the keyword surfacing or discovery steps. All right. So mindful business, right? So this is generally where people would go. Now I would just, click on these various links, pull up the stories, and I would start to add these to my digest or the software that I'm using to curate or build the actual newsletter itself. But I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to go to news, right? So this is more current, it is more relevant, and I find it's fresher, newer, and more innovative content to be sharing for these kinds of newsletters or communities or updates, right? So in this one, January 25th, 2019, why mindful business is the future. Small business hiring lags behind. This one's not really relevant. Some of these you'll see are just kind of junky. They just kind of have the words mindful and business in them, right? So, this one, January 9th, 2019, in recent years, one of the surprising trends has been the rise of mindfulness in the workplace. This is from Forbes. Your Business Matters, being mindful of your mindfulness, from the Jewish News, January 10th, 2019. My mother would be very happy if I actually use that link. Let's look here, sustainable. All right, so you have all these different mindfulness-oriented news items that we could grab, right? And we could, click on these links, why mindful business is the future. And here you have this really, hyper-relevant article for my audience, right? Jennifer Hakim Communications, a marketing and PR agency for mindful businesses. Well, this is the exact sort of content that I would want to be sharing in my newsletter. So just to give you just a really quick taste of what this is going to look like, here's a bookmark lit up here. You can see my mouse is on this. Here's another one here, right? These are various curation services that I'm going to share with you that you can use for this process. But let's just click on this one here, and now I'm sharing this link to my newsletter. All right, and you'll see that behind the scenes in another video. Let's go back to the Google Alerts, right? So let's now set an alert for mindful business. I'm going to create an alert, and now mindful business is going to be up. This alert is already active for your account, so dismiss. I already have that set up. So let's do mindfulness and business. Create an alert. So now we have that. Let's call it spiritual business. Create that alert. Let's call it Conscious consumerism. Of course, I spelled that wrong. Let's see if I can. Create that alert. All right, so now I can do this all day. Now, one of the really, really simple ways of doing some lateral keyword research that is contemporaneous to, it's topical, it's fresh, it's hyper relevant to the current moment, is going to Google Trends, right? So, yesterday was the Super Bowl. So as you can see here, what's trending obviously are things related to the Super Bowl, right? Or football. Taylor Swift, Kim Kardashian, they probably trend every day. I have no idea. I don't know if there's anything going on in particular in their lives. But, here you have all of the various ways. And again, I'm not going to cover this in a lot of depth because this is not necessarily what this short course is about. But let's type in mindful business and you'll get a chance to see what Google Trends is saying about that keyword phrase, right? Over the last year, from February 4th, 2018 to February 4th, 2019, it'll show you all kinds of data that's really, really relevant, but you can get also too much in the weeds as well. So I don't want to necessarily show you all of that because I think it can ultimately be a distraction. You want to really quickly and concisely get the terms that you're looking for to get just a general sense of the zeitgeist, right? So what's happening now? What are people talking about? And the way that you can actually build that out a little bit is look at the related queries, related topics, mindfulness in the workplaces. So if we go to that, it's going to give you a little bit more of a trend line. I think this is trending a little bit higher up. It's also going to give you some extra geographical data. So now you can see people are talking about mindfulness in the workplace in Vermont, which is no big surprise, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, District of Columbia, Maine, all of which are no surprise to me, knowing this niche a little bit, because that's where a lot of folks in my ideal audience are, right? In the Northeast, in these very liberal areas where mindfulness is really a buzzword, especially in the entrepreneurial spaces. All right, so now you're really getting into some lateral keyword research that's interesting, all of which we can start to add to our alert. So you have mindset as a topic, calmness as a topic, coloring book as a topic, simply because mindful coloring, for kids and adults alike, is something that is really trending in terms of popularity, in the audiences that I serve. I know a person who is working on a coloring book for kids. And again, I'm looking at this in real time, right? So this is not a contrived thing, but I know a therapist who's writing a coloring book for kids. All right. Workplace, Vipassana, which is the Pali or Sanskrit word for mindfulness. So now you have Vipassana is actually the practice of mindfulness from a Buddhist perspective. All right, so now if you go to related queries, this is just additional ammunition for our keyword alerts, right? Mindful souls, mindful urgent care, mindfulness exercises, the guide to mindful lettering. I have zero idea what that would be. The mindful Catholic. So mindful urgent care. These are breakout terms. So you have all kinds of data here. Now, if I go back to, let's see if I go back to Google Alerts and I write mindful care. All right. So you have some content here that is really relevant already, right? So you have a church minister talking about the secularization of mindfulness, which is no surprise, not really a match for my audience. That's more of a religious versus secular, sort of play. Let's go to mindful souls. So I'm not going to set an alert for that. The importance of meditation and spiritual awakening. That is actually something that many folks in my audience are interested in. Santa Fe, New Mexico, named as a top travel destination. Well, of course, that's also relevant because lots of folks, know Santa Fe for its focus on sort of spirituality and mindfulness, meditation, and kind of more esoteric, new agey, community events or culture, let's say. All right, so you have all this different stuff. Now I could add that. I'm going to add that. So now I have mindful souls, conscious consumerism, spiritual business, mindfulness in business, mindful business, and I could continue again if we go to back here. Let's see if we can go to calmness. Now, notice how interesting it is. Well, maybe not so much. Wyoming is actually the top trending geographical area for calmness, which has very little to do, or at least as far as I know, with Vermont, Maine, Rhode Island, or at least these three may have more to do with Minnesota. So all these things, again, that's not the topic that I want to cover here. This is a whole different course, so to speak. But what's really interesting is you can start to see, some interesting ways in which your audience is distributed geographically, and maybe some ways in which there is some convergence between different topics that are seemingly at first blush, maybe not so related. So calmness certainly is a mindfulness-oriented analog, right? I mean, the phrase is related, but I don't know necessarily that it's something that I would set an alert for. But let's see if we can do calm. That's probably not going to give us much, but again, what it does give us is more mindfulness-oriented content, right? From movies to meditation, a mindful CEO, creating calmness in a nonstop world, from Forbes magazine, the 7 top qualities of a great business person, again, from CEO world, and it is bringing in calmness once again as a as a trigger word. So maybe I will set an alert for that. All right, let's go back to. And let's see, let's go home. Let's just play around with that for a moment. Anxiety in the workplace, probably too long tail of a phrase for Google Trends. But if you type in anxiety, I'm going to use the keyword, the keyboard so you can see what I'm doing rather than just using shortcuts. Now, anxiety is going to have a lot of results. Right? So, and again, it's interesting. Well, look at that. So you have Maine, Rhode Island, and New Hampshire yet again are showing up very high geographically for anxiety, which also corresponds with the mindfulness-oriented content being popular. Let's look at the related topics and the related queries. CBD oil. You have some more. Again, the same general thing. You have some medications and some cannabis-oriented content. Not really a good match for my audience, but you get the point. I mean, I could, if I wanted to go very, very wide and very carefully curate some content in this set of keywords that, certainly there would be some crossover interest in my audience. But I don't want to do that, right? I want to focus on mindfulness, entrepreneurialism, mindful business, how folks in my core demographic can up their game, so to speak, or can take a leap into a business or a brand or a field, right, that they have a lot of interest and passion for that currently they're not pursuing, let's say. So a lot of my core community are folks who want to write a book, they want to teach a course, they may be a lawyer, they may be an insurance agent, but they want to be a yogi, right, or a mindfulness teacher. They want to create, they want to write a book about their own experience with anxiety and mindfulness, and then use that as a vehicle to transition into a new career. So all of this I know by dint of the really extensive keyword research that we've done for our Mindful Marketplace community. So anyway, you have the opportunity here to really play with these two tools, which are both free, Google Alerts and Google Trends. And of course, you know, Google itself, right? So, I mean, Google itself is going to be a rich treasure trove of content that you can grab and start to add to your newsletter. All right. So, in the very beginning of this, which is not what I wanted to do, but we touched on just really quickly how you can add a single link to to your newsletter backend. And again, just so you can see, these are simple browser extensions using Chrome. The two services that I'm going to recommend to you, one is free to start and one is not free, but the one that is not free, my clients are going to get a discount, 25% off. So if you choose to use the more enterprise grade tool, at least you're going to get a savings that is far in excess of what you're paying for this little mini course. All right, so I want to keep this focused, so I don't want to get too far afield. I'm going to end this now, and you'll have written instructions that will obviously cover all of this should you want that in written documentation, which you should. All right, if you have any questions, as always, feel free to ask, and I will see you in the next lesson where you'll actually see me building out the bones of the newsletter itself. Thanks.